Good afternoon, everybody. This is Valerie from People Matters, and we are back with another exciting session of our webcast in partnership with Right Selection. And the topic for today's discussion is balancing personal and professional life and HR's role in supporting employees. Understanding a short term and long term vision of your personal and professional success can help your employees achieve their goals. This webcast will give you some of the answers to questions such as how is the nature of work and life really changing right now? What are the models that can help your employees frame their long term and short term goals? And how can you reflect on your work life journey to pivot when needed? And what are some of the practical daily tips that can help employees? To take us through his expert views, we have today with us Dr. Marshall Goldsmith, executive coach, speaker, author, and professor of management practice. He is a leadership thinker and has 3 New York Times bestsellers to his name. Dr. Goldsmith has been the author and editor of more than 38 books, which have sold over 2.5 million copies, been translated into 32 languages, and has become listed as the best sellers in 12 different countries. His books, Triggers and What Got You Here Won't Get You There, were both recognized as being in the top 100 books ever written in their field. Dr. Goldsmith is a professor of management practice at the Dartmouth Tuck School of Business. He has over 1 million followers on LinkedIn, and his YouTube videos have over 3 million views. Hundreds of his articles, interviews, columns, and videos are available online at www.marshallgoldsmith.com for viewing and sharing. So we have here an exciting topic ahead for us, and I'm excited to be able to talk to Dr. Goldsmith for this time. We have set aside some 5 to 10 minutes for your questions. So at the end of this webcast, please make sure that you note down your questions and post them during the session. We will try to respond to as many questions as possible as time allows us. So let me not take more time, and without any further delay, let's invite Dr. Goldsmith. Dr. Goldsmith, would you like to start off and introduce the topic to our audience and set the context of it?
Well, let me introduce myself first, and then we will begin. My name is Marshall. I'm from a small town called Valley Station, Kentucky. I went to school at Indiana. I got a PhD at UCLA. I was a college professor and dean when I was young. And for 41 years, I've done 3 things. I give talks and teach classes. I travel all around the world speaking and teaching. I write books and articles, as you mentioned, and I coach executives. I'm the coach of the CO Ford and Pfizer and Glaxo and the World Bank, all kinds of organizations. Okay, now I'm back. Okay, very good. I got lost there for a second. Now I'm going to try to get to my slides and get into SlideShare and show you what we're going to talk about. Today's topic is called leading your own life. So I'm going to talk about the importance of leading your own life, and also the importance of earning your own life. Now I have a question, Valerie. Can you hear me? Valerie, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you perfectly.
Well, good. And can you see my slides?
I'm afraid I can't see your slides. If you just share your screen with us.
Okay, again, let me try again. Something went wrong. Let me try a second time.
Okay. I guess just like on your left-hand side, there's the green
screen share
button. Yeah.
Okay. And then I press share. Okay, it says your screen sharing. Now let me try again. Now can you see my slides?
Yes, I can see your slides now. If you
Perfect.
Yes, perfect. Now we can all see the slides. So you were talking about leading your own life.
Right. So I'm going to
Yes.
talk about leading your own life and why it's important to, number one, in the more and more in the future, create our own lives, not wait for others to do this. And also at the end, I'm going to talk a little bit about the importance of earning your own life, the importance of earning your own life. And a couple of quick points. Please feel free to send me an email, marshall@marshallgoldsmith.com, or if you'd like to go to my website, www.marshallgoldsmith.com. Now, what are we going to be talking about today? First, the importance of planning that life that you want to live, living your own life, not being directed by other people in your life. And then number two, I'm going to share a whole new way to look at the concept of engagement and talk about how you can take responsibility for your own engagement. It'll be a very different view for your readers to talk about the concept of engagement. Now, let us begin. I'm going to share an exercise that changed my whole life. This is called the Heroes exercise. It was taught to me by my friend Aisha Bursell, and I'm going to talk about what happened to me in the exercise and how it changed my whole life. In the exercise, Aisha asked a question. She asked, "Who are your heroes?" So I wrote down the names of my heroes, and then she said, "Why are they your heroes?" Well, it turned out my heroes were all really nice people who were very generous, kind teachers. And she said, "Well, why don't you become more like them?" I thought that's a great idea. I decided to adopt 15 people, teach them everything I know for free, and the only price is when they get old, they have to do the same thing. I made a little selfie video and put it on LinkedIn. The video said, "My name is Marshall. I got ranked #1 leadership thinker, #1 coach, #1 bestseller. I'm going to adopt 15 people, teach them all I know for free, and the only price is when you get old, you have to do the same thing." Well, put it on LinkedIn. I said, "If you're interested, let me know." It turned out to be the most widely viewed video in the history of LinkedIn. Over 16,000 people applied, over 2,000 applicants from India. The process has grown amazingly. Now I'm adopting over 150 people, including we've already accepted 25 new ones from India on the India program. So it's an amazing exercise that I will say totally changed my life. So now what I'd like to do, Valerie, is rather than talk about what it means to me, is let everybody do it. So for all the listeners, you're going to have an exercise. First, I want you to write down who are 3 of your heroes. Now, they could be family members, friends, real people. They could be fictional characters from a book. They could be living, they could be dead. Doesn't matter. Who are 3 people you would define as your heroes? And by the way, you don't have to like everything about this person. They could be your hero for some reason. There might be other elements of their life that you don't care for. In fact, my own heroes, some of them had some very positive qualities and some had very negative qualities, yet they were still heroes for me for the good that they did. Then, why is each one of these people a hero to you? Why is each one of these people a hero to you? And what is one change that you can make in your life today to become more like one of these important heroes in your own life? So I would like you as a listener to write down, who are 3 of your heroes? Why is this person a hero? And what's one change that you can make in your life today to become more like one of your heroes? And then, if you don't mind, I'd like you to send a note in through the chat box or the question box and just say, "Here's the name of one of my heroes. Here's why this person was a hero. And here's one change I can make." And then, Valerie, if you can get these and read them to me, it'd be interesting to see what people have to say.
I'll definitely be sharing this. And when you say 3 heroes and you're giving us the liberty to choose anyone, I would be happy to share the heroes that people say that they look up to.
Now, why don't we start with you? Who's a hero to you, Valerie?
So when you talked about hero, I thought of Batman, because he just uses the tools that he has to do his job and to make a difference in the world. So that was the first name that popped up in my mind. I guess it was more about using the skills, using the tools that he has. I don't know if it's the right answer.
No, everybody can have any answer they want. Now, the question that's most important is, what's one change you can make in your life to exhibit some of these positive qualities yourself?
So perhaps, I mean, kind of look at the skill set that I already have and, maybe build on the strengths. Um, that could be one step, I guess.
Excellent. So really focusing not on what you don't have, but focus on what you do have and how you can build on that strength to be the best person you can become.
Yes, yes, absolutely, absolutely.
Excellent, excellent.
May I ask, who's your hero?
Well, my heroes were often people who were great teachers. People like Peter Drucker, the famous founder of management, Paul Hersey, Alan Mulally, Francis Hesselbein, people who were very, very great teachers and who were also very kind to me and who taught me all they know and never charged me any money.
Mhm.
So then how could I be more like them? That's what led to my project, which has basically changed my life.
That's That is so true. I mean, if you get the right coach, if you get the right teachers, that is definitely has an impact.
Now, have we heard from any other people?
I think we are getting some responses.
Okay.
Um, So I would like to, I would like to encourage all our listeners to share, their three heroes in life. They could be anybody. You can choose fictional characters or maybe someone in your family.
Okay.
Um, and do share why, they are your heroes.
Okay, very good. Very good. And the important point of the exercise is to get you to think what's most important to you. Because the reason these people are your heroes, well, that's a statement of your real values. That's a statement of what you see as most important in life. And when you do this exercise, it really helps you. Now, I'm going to give your listeners one other challenge.
Mhm.
If the person's name you wrote down is alive,
Mhm.
then I think it would be very nice to send the person a little note or an email and to say, I was asked, who are my heroes? And one of the people I mentioned was you. And here's why I mentioned you. I think that's a very, very nice thing to do. I've had hundreds of people do this. And what's positive about it is it's just a nice compliment to give to another person who's important in your life. And for example, how would you feel if someone sent you a note and said, you're one of my heroes?
That's so true. That's so true. We just got one response. Apita has said that Indra Nui is one of her heroes because she thinks that she needs to believe in herself, and then belief in self goes into belief in the system, and then persistence towards your goal. So that is what Indra Nui is one of the heroes of our listener Apita.
Very nice.
And also, Deepti, another listener, she has said that she's talked about her former boss. Her ex boss was very tactful in managing difficult conversations and people. And that is the reason that Deepti says that her ex boss is her hero. Another listener, Peter, has also said that the Buddhist teacher Lama Ol Nyadal is one of his heroes for Peter, because how the Buddhist teacher is fearless and has all the human qualities and inspires him to be responsible for yourself and become the best version of yourself.
Uh, these,
Um,
these are all excellent examples. And again, we could probably spend the whole program just talking about this.
I'm sure.
These are all great examples. So my challenge as we begin is, who are your heroes? Why are they your heroes? And then how can you be more like your heroes? Well, that gets us to think about what matters in life. And I've done sessions at my house with retiring executives, and we talk about what really matters. And we've learned that, of course, health matters. You need wealth only to a certain point. Once you get beyond an upper middle class level, middle class income, there's very low correlation between wealth and happiness. Then, very important to have great relationships with people you love. Assuming that you're healthy, you have at least a middle class level of wealth, and you have good relationships with people you love, what matters in life? Two things: happiness and meaning. Meaning, that refers to The results of what you do are meaningful to you and important to you. And happiness means you love the process of what you're doing. So remember, meaning, results. Happiness is the process. And we found you need both happiness and meaning simultaneously. And one thing you mentioned in the introduction is it's hard today to keep anything in our mind. We live in a world of rapid change, emails, voicemails, constant barrage. And it's important to realize the pace of change today is the slowest pace of change you'll probably ever experience in your own life. Happiness and meaning, they need to come from the inside, not the outside. And they change as we journey through life. And the important point is only you can determine what makes you happy. And only you can determine what's meaningful for you. And if you want to have a great life, you really start to take responsibility and say, how can I create happiness and meaning in my own life and not wait for other people? Now, our default reaction in life is not to experience happiness and not to experience meaning. Our default reaction in life is to experience inertia. We tend to go where we've been going, do what we've been doing, and say what we've been saying. And it is very hard for us to fight the power of inertia, especially changes with technology, work-life balance, the pressures we face. Now, I'm going to share a model. And this model looks at two dimensions. One dimension is called short-term gratification, or you could call that happiness. The other is long-term benefit, meaning. Remember that bottom line, short-term gratification, that's I love the process. I enjoy doing it. Long-term benefit is meaning. And we could talk about then 5 different boxes that represent how we spend our time. The first one I'll call is surviving. It doesn't make me happy, and it's not meaningful for me. It doesn't make me happy, and it's not meaningful for me. And typically people refer to these types of behaviors as chores. I don't like doing it. It's not really important. I feel like I have to do it. The second one is stimulating. I enjoy it, yet there's not a lot of meaning there. This might be amusement, games, fun, things that are not particularly meaningful, yet they're enjoyable. And the next one is called sacrificing. What that means is it's important and meaningful, yet I don't enjoy it. And then sustaining is moderate levels of both. And then the final box, succeeding, is it simultaneously makes me happy and it's meaningful for me. The key to success in life is you need to have simultaneous happiness and meaning. And in my programs, I work with retiring CEOs, and they quickly learn when they leave, they can't just play bad golf with the old men at the country club and eat chicken sandwiches. There's no meaning. Stimulating just doesn't work. You need to have meaning and you need to have happiness at the same time. Now, think of a typical day in your own life, and I'm going to ask you, what percent of your time is spent in each of these 5 categories? What percent of your time is spent surviving? You don't like it too much, doesn't make you happy. What is percent stimulating? It's fun, yet it's not particularly meaningful. Sacrificing, it's meaningful, you don't enjoy it. Sustaining, that's moderate amounts of happiness and meaning. Or succeeding, high amounts of happiness and meaning. Think of your own life on an average day. Let's start with thinking of work. What percent of your life is spent in each category? And you've got 100 points to divide. So as an exercise, I want you to write down these 5 words and write down what percent of your life is spent in each of these 5 categories. Now, as you write this down, let me share the results from the world. The average person in the world says, I'm spending about 14% of my time surviving at work, 11% at home. Stimulating, not surprising, a little more high at home. You'd think so, people having fun, than at work, 15 to 21%. Sacrificing, a little bit more at work than at home, not too much difference. Sustaining and succeeding, almost identical. Now, let me tell you some of the fascinating results in our research. What we found in our research is there's an incredibly high correlation between scores at work and scores at home. Now, what does that mean? Our experience of happiness and meaning says as much about us, who we are, as about it, what we're doing. If the key variable in happiness and meaning is the environment, then our scores at work wouldn't be so similar to our scores at home. It's a totally different environment, yet people who are miserable at work tend to be miserable at home. People who are happy at work tend to be happier at home. We also found spending time with people we love is highly correlated with overall satisfaction, both at home and surprisingly at work. Now, this is one that surprised me a little in our research. What we found out is people that said I spend more hours a week with people I love actually had higher satisfaction with life at work. And when I started to analyze why, I found something out. One of the benefits of work is you get paid. And if you have people you love, the value of that money is quite different. You're not just working to make a living, you're working to help other people that you love. You're putting the kid through school. You're helping your parents. You're helping your husband, your wife. So what we found out is there is a high correlation between spending time with people we love and satisfaction at home, and surprisingly, also at work. What we also found is the only positive correlation with overall satisfaction with life at work or home comes in increased hours in succeeding. What does that mean? We need to experience simultaneous happiness and meaning in our life. Number one, you need to love what you do. Number two, though, you need to find it to be meaningful. And just increasing short-term happiness, stimulating, does not increase overall satisfaction with life at work or even at home. Why? Just amusing ourselves is okay for a while, but it becomes empty. Now, this is very important if you have teenagers. Years ago, I wrote a story and I said, an article, and I said, within 20 years, media addiction will far surpass drug addiction and alcohol addiction combined as a social problem. Well, we're already there. Media addiction is a disaster in our society. Video games, watching other people play video games, just wasting time on media. The average child in America that's flunking out of school is spending 55 hours a week on non-academic media. Basically, they're doing things that produce short-term satisfaction but are not meaningful in the long term. So if you have children, particularly, very important to think about how are they spending their time and really get them to say, wait a minute, not only is this fun, is it meaningful? Now, why don't we live our own lives? We get lost in a world of distraction. We may be living out a self-image that's been programmed by others. We may be so consumed with proving ourselves, we forget why we're proving ourselves. And we may spend our time in ways that don't really help us become the person we want to be. As I said earlier, we live in a perfect storm of distraction today. People are being paid billions of dollars to make us addicted, billions of dollars to produce things that we're excited by, that provide short-term stimulation, that produce a form of media addiction that's very hard to break. In China alone, hundreds of thousands of people have been diagnosed with having some form of media addiction. Now, the identity matrix. To become the person you want to become, it's good to start by asking, what's my self-image now? How do I know who I am? Well, if we look at our identity, it's a function of the past versus the future, other and self, and we can form 4 different sources of our identity. The first part is called our remembered identity. How do you know who you are? Well, you have memories. You think you're a bad tennis player. How do you know? You remember losing tennis matches. These memories shape our identity. The second is called our reflected identity. Reflected identity. Well, you think you're a bad listener. How do you know? People told you you're a bad listener, and these reflections help shape your identity. The third part is called our programmed identity. Now, we've all been programmed to believe we're a certain person. For example, I'm from a small town called Valley Station, Kentucky. I was brought up in a low-income, low-education environment. Middle school down the street came in next to last in academic achievement, some of the bottom scores in the United States. Very unlikely for me to end up with 3 New York Times bestsellers. Yet I got different programming from my mother. She said, Marshall, you were smart. She didn't say I was kind of smart. She said, you're extremely smart. You're the smartest little boy in Valley Station. You're going to college. And my dad had a gas station. She didn't want me to work there. So she said, you have no mechanical skills and you will never have any mechanical skills. Well, how did these programs influence my identity? Well, I was never brought up to believe I could do any mechanical things, so I didn't learn. I ended up taking a test from the United States Army called the Mechanical Aptitude Test. I scored in the bottom 2% of the whole United States. When I was 26 years old, I finally realized the importance of programming. I was getting my PhD at UCLA, and old Dr. Tannenbaum, my teacher, handed out 2 pieces of paper. One piece of paper said, things I do well. What did I write? Scholarly pursuits, research. What was I saying? Smart. Things I can't do. What did I write? I have no mechanical skills. I will never have any mechanical skills. He said, Marshall, how do you know you have no mechanical skills? I said, it's hopeless. I took a test. He said, how are your mathematical skills? Oh, I said, I have excellent mathematical skills. He said, why is it you can solve complex mathematical problems, but you can't solve simple mechanical problems? He said, how's your hand-to-eye coordination? I said, I guess it's okay. I could play pinball games and shoot pool. He said, why is it you could play pinball games and shoot pool, but you can't hammer nails? When I was 26 years old, I realized I had no mechanical skills because I'd been programmed to believe that. There was no logic behind it. And after a while, it wasn't my mother, my father, my friends, the United States Army telling me this every day. It was me telling myself this every day. And as long as we tell ourselves this, it'll never change. I see this when I coach CEOs. They'll say, I can't listen. I can't listen. I've never been able to listen. I can't listen. I say, why not? You have something stuck in your ears? Why can't you listen? Well, as long as we tell ourselves these things, they're going to be true. Now, I didn't have a brother or sister. My mother didn't have, or my wife didn't have a brother or sister. So we didn't understand how important siblings are in our programming. I often talk to people that do have brothers and sisters, and oftentimes our programming is a function of how our parents describe us relative to our siblings. For example, she's the smart one. He's the good singer. She's the athlete. He's clumsy. Well, what happens is we get these images of who we are that come from our parents relative to our brothers and sisters. And if we're not careful, we just live these out for the rest of our lives. I was teaching in a hospital and asked a question just randomly with 300 people. How many of you have been programmed to believe you're the responsible one? Everyone in the room raised their hands. Well, there's nothing wrong with being responsible, and we talked about the good part of it. But then we talked about the negative part. You can't always be responsible. One woman said, I get sick of being responsible all the time. I'm responsible for my mother, my father, my brothers, my sisters. I'm tired of always being responsible. Others have more fun than me. Well, my challenge to you is think about the person you've been programmed to be, and then ask yourself, are there elements of that I might want to change? And then ultimately, we can create a new identity for ourselves. We don't have to be that person we've been programmed to be. We can be a person that we choose to be. One night I had dinner with the famous rock star Bono. And, he decided he went to Africa, saw people starve, and he wanted to be a humanitarian. Well, he changed his identity, and it wasn't easy. People said, oh, you're just a shallow rock star. What are you trying to be a humanitarian for? He said, look, I wasn't this before, but I'm going to be this in the future. I'm going to be a different person because I want to be a different person. Well, we can all make that kind of change in our own life. Now, another thing in terms of one reason we don't become the person we want to be is we've been programmed, and we end up being the person we're programmed to be. The second reason is we just go through life constantly trying to prove ourselves. If anything, India is even worse than the United States on this. Constantly proving ourselves. We take millions and millions of tests over and over to prove we're smart, to prove we're right, constantly trying to prove ourselves. And it's not always bad to do that. The problem is when we do it too much. For example, I coach CEOs. One thing I have to tell them is quit trying to be the smartest person there. Quit trying to prove you know everything. Well, if you look at trying to prove yourself, here's the important question to ask yourself. Am I proving myself in a way that's useful? Am I proving myself in a way that's going to help me have a better life? If you're really trying to prove yourself, but there's no real value in it, you're just wasting time. You're not moving your life forward. You're just wasting time. On the other hand, if you're putting in high effort to prove yourself and there's high value, it's a very good use of your time. And then on the other hand, if you're not trying to prove yourself, but there's no point to it, that's very smart. You're saving time. And finally, sometimes we should be trying to prove ourselves, but we say, I shouldn't have to do that. Well, that's a mistake. It's too much ego. So the key is there's nothing right or wrong with trying to prove yourself. I'm just going to challenge you by look at your own life and say, when am I trying to prove myself? When am I trying to prove myself? And why am I trying to prove myself? Let me give a good example. Instagram, Facebook. People that spend more hours on Facebook tend to be more depressed. Why? Well, if you look at Facebook, you see all these fake families. The kids are always beautiful. Every vacation was perfect. You see this manufactured life. And people see this over and over and they think, gee, I feel like a failure. My life's not as good as them. Well, the reality is their life isn't as good. The other reason I think people are depressed is when you put that stuff online, at some level, it's not really you. It's a fake you. You don't always look that good. Your kids always aren't happy. Every vacation wasn't good. So very important, don't waste your life on trying to prove everyone in Facebook how clever you are, smart you are, how beautiful your family is. Ask yourself, for me to live a great life, is this the best use of my time? Am I trying to prove myself when it matters, or am I trying to prove myself when it doesn't matter? And very important, connect time and value. There's something called PewDiePie. That's spelled wrong, called PEWDIEPIE, PewDiePie. It's watching a guy play video games. 19 billion people have done this. World Wrestling, 18 billion visits. TV watching, Facebook. Make sure that the time you're investing is important to produce long-term value, relationships, happiness, or meaning. Before you deal with any topic, ask yourself one question. Am I willing at this time to make the investment required to make a positive difference on this topic? If the answer is yes, go for it. If the answer is no, let it go. One of my heroes was the great Peter Drucker, founder of modern management. He said, our mission in life is to make a positive difference, not to prove we're smart, not to prove we're right. Well, we waste so much time trying to prove we're smart and right, we forget we're not on earth to prove we're smart. We're here to make a positive difference. And he said, always remember that every decision is made by the person who has the power to make the decision. And if you need to influence that person, you need to treat them like a customer, and you're a salesperson. Change what you can change, and if you can't change it, make peace. Do your best to change what you can change. If you can't change it, make peace with it. And, don't waste your time talking about Kim Kardashian or Donald Trump or all this other foolishness that you're not going to change anyway. Put your time and energy where you are going to make a positive difference in life. And then lead your own life. Who do you want to be? Are you matching your talent and effort and investment with the way it's going to help you be a better person? And what changes can you make? Now, I'm going to finish with a tool. I'm going to share something in the next 10 minutes that's going to take 3 or 4 minutes a day for you to implement. It's going to be great for you to learn as an HR professional. It's going to help you become more effective and build engagement, and it costs nothing. Now, you're probably thinking, that sounds too good to be true. Half the people that start doing this quit within 2 weeks. This is called the daily question process. Now, let me give you the background. I went to a presentation at the National Academy of Human Resources, where I'm a fellow. They did a presentation on recognition, reward programs, training. They're given a challenge. Tell us everything you know about employee engagement. And then they said, wait, I've been hearing the same thing for about 30 years. Then they said, in spite of all previous efforts, global employee engagement is near an all-time low. Then I realized 100% of the discussion on employee engagement is, what can the organization do to engage you? 0%, what can you do to engage yourself? John Kennedy, the US president, had a great speech. He said, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. This was all the opposite of the John Kennedy speech. Well, typical American Airlines flight I'm on, there are 2 flight attendants. One's positive, motivated, upbeat, enthusiastic. One's negative, bitter, angry, and cynical. Same plane, same uniform. What's the difference? Well, the difference isn't necessarily the outside. The difference may be the inside. My daughter Kelly is a professor at Vanderbilt University, has a PhD from Yale, and she and I were discussing this, and she said, Daddy, everything in employee engagement is revolved around what she calls passive questions. If you ask a passive question, for example, do you have meaningful work, or do you have a friend at work, and then you get a negative answer, you tend to blame the environment. Kelly said, get people to ask active questions, especially questions that begin with the phrase, did I do my best to? Now, every day I challenge myself with daily questions. Every day I test myself on these questions, and then I'm going to give you an assignment. Your assignment is write down the most important questions to challenge yourself with every day. Put it on a spreadsheet, 7 boxes across, one for every day of the week. Every question must be answered with a yes or no or a number. And at the end of the week, the spreadsheet will give you a report card. Now, as I said, this is very easy to understand. It's very hard to do. Half the people that start doing this quit within 2 weeks. And they don't quit because it doesn't work. They quit because it does work. Now, the first 6 questions now that I use every day are questions that are backed by some amazing research. One is, did I do my best to set clear goals? And by the way, as an employee, did I do my best to set clear goals? Not did my boss set clear goals for me? Did I set my own goals? Did I do my best to make progress toward achieving my goals? Did I do my best to be happy? Rather than saying, did someone else make me happy? Did I do my best to be happy? Did I do my best to find meaning? Did I do my best to build positive relationships? And finally, rather than saying, did the company engage me? Did I do my best to engage myself? Well, we've done some amazing research on this, where we've done a 2-week study. And we give people an email every day for 2 weeks, having them test themselves on these 6 active questions. Then we receive before and after questions to measure, did they get better? And it just takes a couple minutes a day. What have we learned? 95 studies, 4,885 participants in our research. 34% of the people that did this every day said they got better on all 6 items. 67% said they got better on at least 4 of the 6 items. 91% said they got better at least 1 item. 9% said no change. And less than 1% said things got worse. Why? Every day, these 6 questions get me to focus on the one thing in life I can control. What is that one question? Did I do my best? Did I do my best? The one question we can always control, did I do my best? My prediction is you'll get more long-term improved employee engagement if you get people to do this every day than almost any fancy program you'll roll out. It doesn't take a lot of time and it doesn't take a lot of money. What it does do is gets people to take very clear personal responsibility. Now, I'm going to give you an assignment. I'm going to ask you to think about your own life. We've talked about your heroes. We've talked about what's important to you. And I'm going to ask you to write down a question on any topic that you should test yourself with every day. Now, I do this myself. If you'd like all my questions, send me an email, marshall@marshallgoldsmith.com. Marshall has 2 L's. And I'll send you all my questions. The important point is, though, my questions aren't intended to be yours. Let me share some of mine, though, just by way of background. One of my questions every day is, how many times yesterday did you try to prove you were right when it wasn't worth it? You know, I've almost never got a 0 my whole life. Kind of hard for that old professor not to be right all the time. How many angry or destructive comments did you make about people yesterday? I don't see too many 0s on that one either. Well, if we want to respect people, why do we stab them in the back? Did you say or do something nice for your wife, your son, your daughter, son-in-law, your grandchildren? How many steps did you take? How many push-ups? How many sit-ups? How much do you weigh? Just basic questions about life every day. My friend Jim Moore would tell you this process saved his life. It didn't kind of save his life, or sort of save his life. It did save his life. Was one of his questions. Are you currently updated on your physical exam? The first 90 days we did this, he said no every day. Finally, he said, I must get the exam or quit asking. I'm failing a test every day, and I wrote the question. Well, he got the exam. Would the doctor say you have cancer? No, that was many years ago. He's going to be fine. The doctor also said, had you waited 7 more months, you would have been dead. He knew he should have got a physical exam. He just didn't do it. Well, when you test yourself every day, you can't hide from the truth. So what I want you to do is every day, test yourself. I have a woman named Jasmine call me on the phone every day just to make sure I do this. Why? Somebody said, why do I do this? Don't I know the theory about how to change behavior? I wrote the theory about how to change behavior. Why do I do this? I do this because I'm too cowardly to do this by myself. I'm too undisciplined. I know how hard it is. And by the way, if you tell me this isn't hard, you know what? You just proved you've never done it before. Anybody who does this will tell you it's very hard to do. It's very hard to look in the mirror every day and take responsibility for our own lives. Now, finally, live an earned life. My next book is going to be called The Earned Life. What does this mean? Well, we often think that our solutions are out there, yet they aren't. Study after study shows when people win the lottery and win millions of dollars 3 years later, they're no happier. We look for an answer to happiness and meaning outside of ourselves. And we say, you know, if I have this, I'm going to be happy. If I get this money, if I get this status, if I get this achievement, I'm going to be happy. It doesn't work. Entitlement. My daughter has 3 friends that are all trust fund babies. They have more money they could spend. They're all bums. They're basically rich bums, but they're just bums. One of my friends is a CEO of a huge company, and he said, you know, I worked my whole life so hard so my children would never have to work hard. He said, that's a huge mistake. Well, what I've learned is to have a great life, really take responsibility for earning it. And by the way, you have to keep taking responsibility for earning it. If you look at the studies in the United States on, for example, pro football players, 70% go bankrupt within 5 years after they quit. 90% get divorced. Why? Well, when they were playing football, they were earning that respect. When they quit, they just started coasting. They weren't earning it anymore. And guess what? It wasn't worth having. Their lives tend to fall apart. So very important, don't be entitled. Look at the ultimate source of motivation is in yourself and focus on earning your own life. Now, what we're going to have is questions. I'm going to ask you for the next 10 minutes, what are some good questions you might have for me? And then we'll talk about any questions you might have for me. Okay, let me get out of this. Now, can you see me okay?
Yes, we can see you perfectly. I must say that this particular session, I mean, you raised so many questions within ourselves. It's been quite an introspective session, I must say. And I'm sure, I mean, we already have one question that has been asked. I'm going to take up this question that Pooja has posed. She's referring back to the 5 words that you were talking about, you know, surviving, stimulating,
right.
Those words I think she's referring to. So she's asking, what is the one thing that talent leaders like me can do to find whether employees are thriving in both their work and personal life? I think this is quite a relevant question where I think Pooja as an HR professional is trying to you know, kind of figure out where her employees are at this point in time, and you know, how can HR leaders know whether, you know, they are on what scale are they? Are they just, you know, coasting through life, or are they surviving, and or are they thriving? You know, so.
Well, here's what I would do. I would separate work and home because they are different environments. Separate work and home, and for both, you've got that box, 5 different categories. For each of the 5 categories, take a typical day and say, what % of my time is spent in each of these categories on an average day? What % of my time is spent low happiness, low meaning, moderate happiness and meaning, high happiness, low meaning, high meaning, low happiness, and then the succeeding box every day. Then ask yourself, what changes can I make in my life now to either push myself toward more happiness, push myself toward more meaning, so I'm spending more of my life in that succeeding box? Let me give you a good example. I went to a women's leadership program taught by a very famous CEO woman, and she said, you know what, don't do chores. Mm-hmm. She said, I'm a great CEO, I work very hard. I work very hard to have a good family. And I stay in shape. She said, that's it. That's it. I don't have time for anything else. And she said, if you like to cook, cook. If you don't like to cook, don't. Well, someone challenged her. They said, easy for you to say, you're rich. She said, I know the lowest paid woman in this room is making 250,000 US dollars. Do not tell me you cannot hire minimum wage help.
Yeah.
Well, really get over that nonsense of I have to do everything, especially for women, and say, wait a minute, I don't have to do chores. Don't waste your life on that stuff. And really, if it's not making you happy and it's not meaningful and you don't have to do it, don't do it. Life is too short. Life is too short. You really need to focus on that, what is going to produce the big payoff.
Very
And
true.
don't waste your life on stuff that doesn't matter.
So true, so true. I mean, when you kind of, prioritize and, clear away the clutter, then the most meaningful thing in life kind of, pops out at you. Which brings me to Harjot's question. Harjot is asking, similar, in the similar vein, how do we separate pursuit of material from pursuit of meaning and integrate it in our lives as HR professionals?
Very important. And, pursuit of material things can relate to meaning. They're not necessarily divorced. Let me tell you what I mean by that. Let's say your work isn't particularly that meaningful, yet the pay enables you to put your kid through college.
True.
That's very meaningful.
Yeah.
Well, you need to say not just what is the work providing me in and of itself, what is the money providing me?
Exactly.
And I think that's one reason people that had these positive relationships with others tended to find more happiness and meaning at work and home, because the money from work provided meaning, even if the work wasn't as meaningful. The second thing you can do is really get each employee to challenge themselves and say, all right, what provides me happiness and meaning? And not just get the company to wait for it. And then the third goes back to those 6 questions.
Yeah.
Are you doing your best to find meaning and happiness in your own life instead of waiting for someone to give it to you? So every day, if you come to work and say, I'm going to do my best to create meaning today, guess what? Your work will be more meaningful. This is very consistent with the Gita, by the way. What the Gita say, you can't change the end results. You focus on the process. The one thing you can always do your best.
Yes, very true. Very true.
What is do your best.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that is, I think you mentioned it earlier as well, that, you have to give it your best shot. And then that is the only way to kind of, get the meaning out of your work. Or maybe, you also mentioned the long-term goal or long-term benefit that you can put your kids through college. I mean, that is a good enough reason to, continue in the job. So another question that Richa has asked, she says that we kind of theoretically know about the importance of not quitting and kind of sticking with our gut feeling, but she's asking about can you tell us some practical steps that a person can take to sticking to the goals and not letting go?
Yeah, I would recommend the daily questions. And also, every day, do it every day.
Yeah.
It's hard. Again, I have a woman call me every day to make sure I do this. Why? I know how hard it's hard for me. It's hard for any of us to do these things. You see, we all want the quick fix, the easy answer. The answer is day to day to day, follow up. My research on feedback and follow-up, which is 86,000 people, shows that when leaders get feedback and they follow up on a regular basis, they get better. They get feedback and they don't follow up, you're wasting time. Well, nobody gets better because of a program or a speech. You get better because of the day-to-day work. And back to that concept of earning it. You get better because you earn it. And earning it is hard. That's why, by the way, we all need help. One thing I'm proud of in my book, Triggers, 27 CEOs endorsed the book. Why am I proud? 30 years ago, no CEO would admit that having a coach. They'd have been ashamed. You know what they say today? It's okay to need help. Hey, I need help. It's okay. Valerie, you need a little help?
Yes, I do, definitely.
Here's your idea. It's okay.
Yes, it's okay. I think we have one question. Peter is asking actually to how to find the cause for kind of repetitive problems with those situations, and kind of you mentioned about being angry about outside things outside of us,
Yeah.
and external factors. So Peter is asking how to kind of get rid of these subconscious habits.
Well, the first thing is I'm a not a religious but a philosophical Buddhist, right? And Buddhism is very good for this. One thing you learn in Buddhism is acceptance. Acceptance. You need to learn to accept what is. Now, you don't have to like what is or agree with what is. You need to learn to accept that what is. Hey, in life, you're dealt a hand of cards at any second in time. You cannot change the hand. All you can change is how you play the hand. We can't change the past. So part of it is learning to forgive ourselves for being who we are, forgiving mom and dad for not being perfect, forgiving the environment for not turning out the way we wanted it to be, and to realize I'm here now. I'm here now. How can I make the best of it?
Very true. So kind of, I mean, that just puts you in the moment, and kind of makes you realize the importance of making the best of it, whether be it at work, whether be it when you're spending time with family, whatever it is, it's about being in the moment, and figuring out how to be the best version of yourself.
Well, look at the basic message from the Gita. The basic message is, here you are. Yeah, you have two bad choices. Right.
Yes.
So what? Grow up. You have two bad choices. Yeah, fine. It is what it is. Suck it up and be your best.
Yeah, that is the really relevant advice. So another question that we have, I think they haven't mentioned their name. But I'm gonna just take up the question anyway. They're asking for any examples on how organizations are giving space to kind of strike that balance between managing personal and professional lives, and that is something very relevant that keeps coming up in conversations, that oh, work takes up so much time, or that there's no time for person. So there's like that divide. So how would you say organizations can deal with this?
Well, I think the first thing is organizations need to be honest. This is an area where I find organizations are frequently not honest. They pretend to care about this, but they really don't. They don't care about work-life balance, they care about a number. And to me, that's okay. Just tell the truth. Don't play games with people. And so many organizations in this topic just play games with people. So the first thing I would say is tell the truth to people. Some organizations, you have to work about 90 hours a week. That is what it is. You get paid a lot. That's life. You don't like it, leave. Well, it's okay. I have no problems with that if you're honest about it. Other organizations are focused more on that as a business point. So I'm not saying what any company should or shouldn't do. I guess my one suggestion is be honest with people as where you are, and then say, here's where we are on this continuum. Some companies are way over at one end, some the other. Fine. It's a personal choice. Just tell people the truth, and then help them decide, is this the company I want to be in? And by the way, you may choose to be in a company where you work 90 hours a week and make lots of money. Investment bankers don't have well-balanced lives. That's life. Yeah. They don't go into investment banking to have a well-balanced life. They make a lot of money, and they work all the time. And you know what? So what? It's okay. On the other hand, everybody doesn't have to do that.
Very true.
And we're all adults here. Make your choice.
Yeah. And it goes back to what you said earlier about finding meaning in, because meaning would be meaningful tasks would mean different for me, would be a different thing for you. So similarly, that is the reason, about the investment bankers, that, as you said, maybe they are finding meaning in that particular, way of life. So again, it goes back to the introspection part that you brought up in the presentation, that we need to take stock of our lives and, kind of figure out where we are in terms of personal versus work lives and how to balance them.
Exactly.
And the same goes for organizations to kind of and talent leaders to kind of build that transparency within their processes,
Right.
to lay it all out there and attract the best talent in that way. So,
Now, by the way, in my book, How Women Rise, I'm often asked a question, what are the differences between women and men? And many of your questioners have been women. The average woman gets better 360 feedback than the average man. The average woman has one issue to deal with much more than the average man. The desire to be the perfect everything to everybody. Look at you. I bet you have some of this problem yourself. Perfect wife, perfect mother, perfect friend. Oh, in India, you get a bonus one. Perfect daughter-in-law.
well, now that we'll be coming towards, towards the end of this discussion, unfortunately, we can't take any more questions since we are coming to the end. And as you kind of, segued into the Women's Day that's coming up in the next few weeks. So we'll have a lot more to talk about then as well. Talking about empowering women in the workplace and kind of, all the different initiatives are around it. So with only one more minute to go, I'm going to take this opportunity to thank you, Dr. Goldsmith, for, spending your time with us and sharing your amazing insights about balancing professional and personal lives and actually earning the life that you want. So thank you so much for those great insights. And thank you to all the wonderful attendees who participated in this whole discussion. And thank you for your wonderful and insightful questions as well. So I would like to take this opportunity to wrap up today's webcast. And I would like to thank Dr. Goldsmith for staying with us. Stay tuned for many more exciting sessions. So thank you so much and have a great day.
Thank you.